So I'm very pleased to be here on My Magical Thing with the awesome Justin Sledge, Professor of Philosophy and Religion, Scholar of Western Esotericism and Related Currents, creator of the fabulous, please check it out if you haven't already done so, Esoterica YouTube channel. Justin, it's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you, Julian. It's really great that you create this container for people to do show and tell, which I don't know why we stopped doing it in elementary school, but show and tell should just be a thing that we do all the time. I really enjoy it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on and do some magical show and tell.
You're very welcome, my friend. So at this point, I must ask, Justin Sledge, please may we see your magical thing?
Yes, you may see my magical thing. So this is my magical thing. This is a papyrus scroll, and I will continue to unroll it, written by me in ancient Greek. And this contains the first chapter of the first book of Aristotle's Metaphysics.
Whoa.
So if you want to see it from the side to get a sense of how long it is, that's it, basically half. Put those back in, but you get a sense of how much papyrus there is there, right? And so as you unroll it, this would be roughly the same size as the roll that you would get in the late classical world. So if you wanted to go to Aristotle and read Aristotle in the original, in the ancient Greek, on an actual piece of Egyptian papyrus, this is what it would have looked like, you know.
That's beautiful. I'd forgotten that you're a calligrapher as well.
I am a calligrapher. Yeah, this is a fringe benefit of my interest in esoterica, is also sort of the artistic side of copying some esoterica, but it also gives me access to medieval handwriting, so I can read ancient and medieval handwriting. Sometimes John Dee's handwriting is notoriously bad if you've ever tried to look at those manuscripts. But there's a story about why I would consider this my magical thing. Please. And the story is that I'm not a practicing magician or occultist. I'm an academic of these things. Not that those two things are mutually exclusive. Some of the best practitioners are also some of the best academics, and vice versa. But it has to do with how I got into studying esotericism. And that was, I come from a working class background, and the way that often working class parents in the United States, when they don't have childcare, sometimes you get dropped off at the library. And the idea is that library becomes, the librarian becomes a kind of de facto babysitter, for better and worse for the librarian. But sometimes my parents would just drop us off at the library, and it was kind of like they had to go run an errand, and and we were at the library. So as a middle schooler, I spent a lot of time in the library, and I was a big fan of like Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World and Leonard Nimoy on In Search Of, and Atlantis and ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot, and all that was in my 10-year-old wheelhouse. So I spent a lot of time in the 000s in the Dewey Decimal System, which is where all that stuff hangs out. And I imagine anyone watching this has spent a good bit of time there, hanging out in that section as well. But as you probably know, right, the 000s eventually give way to the 100s, and that's where philosophy begins. And there was a moment as a kid where I was checking out books about Atlantis or whatever, and there was Aristotle sitting there, and there was a copy of Aristotle, and it said Aristotle, and it still had it in Latin, Metaphysica. And there was I knew vaguely who Aristotle was. I knew he was some important ancient dude, and I knew that metaphysics sounded really cool. And I was like, this ancient cool guy wrote about all this stuff, right? Because it was all kind of grouped in as metaphysics. And I was like, well, he must have written the book, right? He's Aristotle. So I checked it out, I took it home, and I failed to understand anything Aristotle was talking about for the next 40 years. So after, multiple graduate level seminars on Aristotle and everything else. But what I can say is that part of the Aristotle brain was the critical philosophy brain. And that brain eventually became a huge part of my academic career and a huge part of my life. But back in the 000s, I never lost interest in that either, right? And so I now do esoterica professionally as an academic. Those got combined. I never became a believer in esoterica, but I also never thought, oh, pure skepticism, let's just throw all this like rubbish into the bin. They got combined. And that combination led to me going into the academic study of esotericism and me founding Esoterica, the YouTube channel, to really approach this material in that way. And this represents my love that is so deep for the ancient and for the occult and for the esoteric, that as a part of my, I guess what I would call spiritual practice, I copy it by hand so I can live in that text. I can live in the world. I want to feel the papyrus against my fingers. And in that way, I connect to it in a deeply spiritual, perhaps magical way, I don't know. But, you know, every time I'm copying this out, and even the mistakes I make, for instance, I let it get a little bit too close to the water I was drinking, and you can see the damage. You can see the damage, but I didn't fix the damage, right? Because the damage is part of the process. And so this connects me to that ancient, the ancient world of Alexandria, the world of the Gnostics and the Hermeticists and the Greek magical papyri. It connects me, and it combines those two things in a way that I feel deeply in love with and profoundly touched by, and it's transformed my life in so many ways. And in that way, I would say it's not just a magical thing, but it's really my magical thing, because it represents all of that to me, and it's literally me putting ink to papyrus to give it life. And I think in a sort of in a conjuring of that world that means so much to me. So Julian, this is my magical thing.
Justin, that's profound and beautiful and well crafted, and thank you so much for sharing that and all the other work that you do. It's really, really appreciated, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course. Thank you.